a song is like a box of bananas.
I'm curious where this is going because I'm already liking the analogy.
Right?
Hey, Victor, how's it going? It's Brandon calling from Canada.
Hi, from Canada. That's awesome. Hi. It's all good. How are you?
Doing well. I'm doing okay. You're where? You're in Stockholm?
I'm in Gothenburg right now, which is on the other side of the country, right? That's Western Sweden, also known as the rainiest town in all of Scandinavia.
Oh, interesting. All I
Yeah.
really know about
Yeah.
Gothenburg is obviously death metal.
That's it. That's my bread and butter, right?
Is now tell me this, is Fredrik Nordstrom, is he from Gothenburg?
He is, and he founded the Studio Fredman in the '90s, right? Maybe earlier, '80s actually. I've met him a few times. He's still he has a studio here, and he's still recording amazing melodic death metal and classic Norwegian black metal, I guess.
Really? I didn't know so much about the black metal, but I mean, I think of him as Dream Evil and In Flames and a million
At the
other bands,
Gates,
but
right?
that's amazing to hear he's still at it. I thought I had heard he retired like a decade ago.
I think he did for a while, maybe. I don't know him personally, but I think he kind of started out. He moved his studio from one location to another, and then he had a bunch of other studios come in and work with him, and like smaller studios start out in his space and all that. So he's still, as far as I know, he's still working hard and he's making records. Yeah, I think he is. So yeah, I got a couple of friends actually who work near him in the same building and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I didn't realize he had like a complex. I always just thought it was him and is it Henrik Ud? Is that the other
Yeah,
guy?
that's the guy, right? That's the guy.
Yeah.
Wow, you know a lot about. Yeah, you know a lot about him. That's great. That's awesome.
Well, I'm a huge Dream Evil fan, and a
Oh
friend of mine's
man.
band did a record with him about 15 years ago or so.
Oh, that's so.
But I
So am
mean,
I.
for us, I mean, we just grew up worshiping his productions. You know, like I'm a
Right.
huge fan of recording and mixing and all that. And so you pick out albums you like, and it's like, what albums you really like? I don't know. Well, In Flames Clayman sounds incredible. The Dream Evil stuff sounds incredible.
Exactly. For me, the blueprint was at the gates, Slaughter Up the Soul, and
Yes.
that came
Oh,
out.
great sounding record.
I was way too young when that came out, but but still, like that record is still like one of my top 10 at least. Like when it comes to the production and the fierceness of it, I think it just like I don't know, I can just put it on today and just feel like there's nothing else that kind of has this vibe to it. There's obviously like production has come a long way since the '90s, but it's still it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, the sounds that it's funny because once everything went digital, a lot of the sounds people were getting was just insane.
Right? Absolutely.
It's sort of like well, like I guess CDs and other things had an aspect of that too, because everything was mastering for vinyl and there was no bass on it because you
Right.
couldn't put it in the grooves,
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
digital just opened up the sound.
100%.
Yeah, it was funny. I was interviewing Jeff Tate, and his line was, "We didn't discover bass until about '95," and I always thought that was really funny.
That's pretty funny. That's true, actually. Yeah. No, I think about it all the time. Like when we record records now, we tend to have. I mean, we have such a much broader spectrum of like sound than I guess what the '90s or '80s maybe offered. I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Both digitally
Yeah.
and just the medium itself allows for so much more.
100%.
So when I do these, I like to start at the beginning of you as a musician and then work our way up to the new record, the new Eclipse. So starting at the beginning, where did you grow up and how did you get started in music?
Right. In relation to the band Eclipse, me and my brother, we both play in the band, right? So my brother is Philip and he plays drums and he's been a part of the band much longer than I have, at least playing in the band. We both grew up in Gothenburg, which is Sweden's second largest city, about 4 hours to the west of Stockholm. And we kind of grew up in a sort of musical home where it varied from, our mom would play piano and our dad, he was and is an avid hard rock type of person, right? So he grew up playing his records with Sweet, Thin Lizzy, Tigers of Pantang, a lot of Europe. Well, a Judas Priest, all that stuff. So that was kind of a part of the of our childhood, I think. And then we just kind of picked instruments pretty early on. I would play bass and my brother would play drums. And we started playing together when we were around like, I was maybe 11, 12, and he was a little bit older than me. So it was sort of something that from that very early age, we just enjoyed doing. And as you get older, you kind of, because life tends to intervene, right? And I was younger than him. So he finished school and he moved to America to study drums. And we didn't play together for many, many years because we were living in different places, right? And it wasn't until I joined Eclipse in 2019 that we actually started playing together again for the first time in what, 15 years or something, which was pretty awesome.
It's funny because I was going to ask you about that because the first thing that I'm aware of you doing is the stoner metal band Crash.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think you would have been what, 13 or something at the time? Like you
Yeah,
were
I was
really
like, I
young.
think we started that when I was, that's crazy that you know that. Yeah, it's not a very big musical venture, but it was just, me and Philip and two guys, Philip and Gustav, who it was, it's one of those, I don't know if did you do that in Canada? Like when you're a teenager, you kind of just like, you need to have a band, right? If you're into music, you need to have a band. And that's like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that
I
was
was
a thing
about
for us.
14 or 15 jamming in a garage.
Exactly. That's what you do, right? Philip is like the most driven human I've ever been around. So he was like pretty early on, he started booking gigs and at like, clubs, and we were way below the drinking age. So we couldn't really spend time in the clubs. We could just go on stage and just like play a set and then leave immediately, but it was still worth it. So he kind of put up this whole like plan of like we're playing every weekend when we were like 15, right? And it was kind of crazy. It kind of set the bar for how to enjoy playing every weekend for the rest of your life. That was a great thing, right? But we did that band, and then that was like one of those first types of first bands that you have, right? And after that, I just I kept going with the stoner rock or that type of like doom or sludge or whatever you want to call it. I kept playing that for many years. I toured Europe a bunch with my other band called Langfinger, which is more of a 70s rock outfit. We still play, we're putting out records and all that, but it's a much smaller scale. And I think what happened was that in 2019, it was more or less the band was at like an impasse where it was like, okay, we're going on tour. We just released a record and we have to tour this record, right? So what are we doing? We need a bass player. And it wasn't my brother who suggested it, which is pretty funny. It was actually it was the manager. Just like, well, Victor's he plays bass, and they were just like, yeah, I guess he does, right? And then they just called me. I was like, I don't know, I was doing some other like film work or something up north in the country, and they called me and they were just like, well, what do you feel about coming on tour? They were really kind about it too, because I've been like, I think at that point I was at that age and time in my life where I was just like, if I'm going to do this, I need to like sort out my life so it works around it, right?
Yeah.
But they were really kind about it and just called me and said like, well, if you want to do this tour, you don't have to like promise that you'll join the band full time, blah 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 or whatever. And I didn't want to pressure them and like because I'm a little bit of a musically we're a bit different, I would say, but then again, so is Philip to Eric and Eric to Magnus and Magnus to Philip, and everyone in the band we all have our own like stuff that we like that maybe not everyone else loves. So I think what they initially told me was just like, do you want to hop in and do the 4-week tour in Europe? And I was like, yeah, sounds cool. It's like I just did that and it worked out really well. I knew the guys from before too. Like I think that's one of the good things about my relationship to my brother, obviously, is that once he joined Eclipse back in, I can't remember when, 15 or 16, that's when I also kind of got to know the guys, right? Because I would be hanging around for years and I would be at their shows and I would talk to Eric and Magnus and my predecessor, Magnus Olstead as well. Like everyone's really kind and everyone's really, it was such a nice gang, right? So it wasn't like we didn't know each other, which I think was super important too. Because when you go on tour, right, you go on a tour bus and you're there in your bunk, and if you're not in your bunk, you have to hang around with other people. So we kind of just like spent 4 weeks together, and it was just like, well, we've never done anything else, right? And it worked out really well. And I think we've since then had a blast together, making music, touring music, whatever.
I think that's one thing, that a lot of people don't realize is that's great if you can sit in a studio and make a record together, but where you really find out what you're made of as a band and as people is when you get out on the road and you learn very quickly I've always described it like this, everyone's got, a significant other. And okay, well, now it's not just one other person you're living with. It's now 4 or 5 or however many people in your band, and you have to make it work on a bus in a confined space.
Right, plus crew. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not getting a hotel for a weekend together. It's a month or
Right.
2 months or whatever, right?
Exactly. And everyone goes through all like these stages on tour that, the first 2, 3 days are just like, it's like a rocket launch, and then it's just like the next like week is just like, you kind of hit it's kind of a slump almost, like not on stage, but like on the bus and everything, and you kind of, make your peace with your space and everyone else's space, and then like it just feels like you're there for a year, right? But it's only a couple of weeks. But it just like there's so many impressions all the time, and there's so little and so much to do at the same time, I think.
Yeah. Stepping back for just a sec, tell me about your band Langfinger. How did you guys form? I've checked out some of your stuff too, and it's quite good. Like you say, very sort of
Oh, thank you.
70s sort of style rock. Tell me a bit about the band.
Well, that was one of those things when we were kind of, well, I would say when I was about like 15 or something like that. And I didn't play with my brother anymore. It was kind of obviously from playing in a small town, every other musician that is around your age. Um,
Yep.
so, so I kind of had like these two guys that we played with a bunch. They just called me one day, and their bass player and vocalist had like bailed from a gig or something, which was a gig. Like it was a 20-minute set at like a local pizzeria kind of deal, you know.
Yep.
And they called me and they were like, "Well, do you want to come over and we just like play some the Who stuff and like what else was there? Caius, bands like
Wow,
well, typical
that's quite the
stoner
range.
rock.
The
Yeah.
Who and
Right,
Caius.
exactly. The Who and Caius. That's like I think that was it though. Yeah. But so they called me
I
and
got to ask, as a Caius fan, what song did you play from them?
it's Gardenia, and we played
Oh,
Super Scoopa and the Mighty Scoop. I think what else could we have played? Green Machine, maybe? I don't know. Yeah. It's been many years. But yeah, no, we used to play it all the time. And venture deeper into like King Crimson and stuff like that, even later, and just prog rock stuff. But at the time it was like that was kind of a new discovery, like meeting other people and playing with, several other musicians and stuff. And then after that gig, it was just like I knew how to play with those guys because we knew each other and we knew what we all liked, kind of. So the guitar player in that band, he's like, I think he would, if there would have been a competition at the time about like trivia and knowledge about Deep Purple and the Beatles and the Who, he would win it every time because he knew every song and every, But yes, so that was like how we met and started that band. And then it was just like one of those things where we would start recording music, and because we didn't really do that before with the other band, right? So we didn't record stuff and release it. We just kind of played live and tried our best at finding ways to look cool on stage, right?
of course.
That's what you do, right? And in this case, it was more like I think we got a record deal when I was 16 and the other guys were 18, and we put our first album out, and it was like recorded in a day in an attic, like outside of the city. That's pretty funny, but that album has kind of lived on for a bit, which is really cool. It's also like sort of for many years, I thought it was pretty bittersweet to kind of have a record that you made when you were 16. You weren't entirely like thrilled about it because you thought you could have done so much better. But then it kind of also just like grows into this other thing, not a massive thing, but it's a niche kind of Swedish stoner sludge subculture thing, right? And that was just like, okay, cool. That's still with us today. And whenever we play a show with that band, we always play songs from that record as well.
Which is that Skygrounds?
That's Skygrounds, right? Yeah. So it came out.
Okay, yeah, I've listened to a song or two from
Right.
it.
Yeah. We're very young and we're like, we have no clue what we're doing, but it's kind of cool at the same time. And it's recorded by and mixed by this guy named Espen Willems, who is the drummer of a band that tours Canada and the US pretty often. They're called Monolord. He helped us out a bunch. Like he was just like, he's a little bit older than us, and he just like saw us and thought that we were three idiots, obviously teenagers, but also maybe thought that there was something there, and that was very helpful for us, I think. And then we did a bunch of other records, and kind of we just recorded one last year that's coming out next year. And it's still really cool. It's kind of like a set, like we know each other so well by now from playing together for like 15 years. So it's like most bands that have that relationship, right? So you kind of just like it's very different too, because we always record things live, and we don't necessarily want it to differ that much between the live gig and the record.
I think too, for that style of music, for that 70s sort of stoner metal kind of thing, that's exactly what you want. I mean, you'd mentioned Caius, and it's like that's what they used to do back in the day.
Exactly.
It was get in a studio, jam out the record. There you go.
It took us a long time to realize that genre actually has like a ton of pot involved. We didn't do that, kids, right? So we were just like, well, this is the groove, right? This is a good riff. Let's play it for 20 minutes. And like those people did that stoned. So it was like, okay, well, but yeah, that was such a crazy time. But it was also like one of those, I think a lot of musical projects tend to go places and and not necessarily bound for any world domination. It's just like it's fun. It gives and it takes, and I think we were all kind of by like 2018, 2019, we were all kind of just like, okay, well, let's give it a break for a minute, right? And that's when Eric and Magnus and Phil called me. So that's that went the way it went.
What kind of bass and amps and stuff do you play? What's your gear like?
For many, many years, I always played a precision bass, like a standard cheap precision bass that I bought in California when the US dollar was very devalued compared to the Swedish krona.
I miss those days. I'm in Canada right next to the States, and it was about 2012, and
exactly.
that was the best time ever. When our money was worth something.
I know, right? I literally bought a bass for what today's equivalent would have been like $250, and it's like a great Fender. I've had it with me every Eclipse gig. I don't always play it anymore, but it's always there as a backup. So I had that bass for forever. I think I bought it well, not forever, obviously, but like I bought it in the early 2000s. And then I would always play through an orange AD200 Mark II amp and cab, right? But then as soon as I joined Eclipse, it was like I knew that we needed like a much more heavier sound rather than being fuzzy or distorted. So what I did is I went out and grabbed a classic, Ampeg SVT Classic, one of the newer ones, and it just kind of suited it perfectly. The problem was that I at the time I was like, I'd given up on the precision basses. So I was only playing Rickenbackers. And when you play a Rickenbacker directly into an Ampeg, it just doesn't sound as good as it should, or I mean, as modern, I would say. And that kind of made us like tweak the sound a bunch. Eric is also a fantastic bass player. He has played bass in many, many bands over the years, and he knows how to tweak the sound to get like what he feels is the cream of it. And he taught me a lot about how to do that, because previously I was much more a plug and play type of person. I would just like plug into any amp and I would just play bass, right? As long as it's loud enough, it's usually good, right? And I think that was like in 2019, I just realized like, whoa, you could actually do this stuff, right? And that's why I'm not like a recording engineer or anything. So Eric does that. That's his job, and he knows how to do it. But yeah, so today it's much more of a classic bass sound. I've switched some pickups. I bought new Duncans for my Rickenbackers, and it kind of works. It's like when I record albums, like every bass track on every album that I've been a part of thus far has been a precision bass, because we just like the sound of that. But playing live, it's just like, I don't know, I just love the sound and look and the way it plays the Rickenbacker. So I used to play a 4003 Fireglow 1978 Rickenbacker, which I bought many years ago as well. But then I just realized it's stupid to tour with that thing because it's only going to get lost. So I went out and bought, there's a guy here in Gothenburg that buys like old Greco lawsuit models from Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. Great guy. He found a Greco backer from 1981, I think. And I picked that up in like end of February 2020. And I like fixed it and it was ready to go. And then COVID happened, and I had it from when we started playing again until we played a show in May in Austria. We were playing with Gotthard, and I threw the bass in the last song. I usually throw my bass for some reason because I don't know, it's stupid. So I put it on the ground, right? And somehow it just fell off and just like kind of cracked down through, like from the top of the neck down to the bottom of it, basically.
Oh,
it was just like, yeah, I know it sucks, but it's definitely mendable. It just needs a person that's not me to look at it, right? I think. And then I just picked up a new one like pretty recently, and that's what I'm playing right now. So it's like also a Greco-Bacher from, I guess they're called Greco-Bacher. I guess that's what it says on the headstock, but they're good. Like they're fun. They're a bit more modern sounding than Rickenbackers because they're like so proud of their Beatles sound, right? So, yeah. But yeah, they're cool.
So I realize we're quickly running out of time. So let's talk the new record. Is it Megalomania?
Megalomanium. Yeah, that's it. It's a made-up word.
Megalomanium. Thank you. Autocorrect changed. I'm like, I thought it was something slightly different. Megalomanium. Thank you.
Mine does that too. Yeah.
I'd written it down. I probably just should have like pasted the album cover or something because it completely changed it. But
I'm barely. It still feels so fresh to me. So I haven't gotten used to seeing. I have the record in my hand right now. Just got it delivered this weekend, and it still feels like it's so new, like the whole concept surrounding it. So yeah, megalomanium, exactly. It's a made up word. We tend to we've done that in the past with different albums, like picking words and just like not having them be like real words because it's better, I guess.
Yeah, it's also way easier to find on Google too.
That's it. We thought so, and then we did this song from our last album, which was called Twilight. And good luck trying to Google Twilight Eclipse. You end up with the Stephanie Meyer
Oh,
film with
geez.
yeah, right there you go. Yeah. Yeah, that's a rough one, but yeah, for sure. Megalomanium. It's coming out September 1st, and it's I would say it's by far the most diverse record that I've been a part of. It's definitely like very broad, and I mean, you've heard it. It's got a lot of different vibes to it throughout the record.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you've got a song like Children of the Night, which is your classic,
Mhm.
super, like very heavy, 80s hard rock song,
Yeah,
almost metal, really.
yeah,
And then
right.
you've got, I mean, I think it's the first single, The Hardest Part is Losing You.
Yeah.
And I mean, that could be all over modern pop radio. Yet it's still a
So
rock
that's
song.
I think that's the hardest part is losing you. That was a kind of came about. We were up recording in Eric's studio last year or this year. I can barely remember, but we were there and we were all listening to, always has a bunch of demos and stuff. And it's never really always like a finished song. It's like parts, right? So he was like, I don't know, just like showed some old sketch of something and it had that chorus. And it was just like, man, that's a good chorus. That's a great chorus. Like, it's really cool. And it was just like, it just needs a riff. And then he just picked up a guitar and just went like this. And it was like the riff that ended up on the record. And it just kind of felt like, okay, wow, all right, what do we do now? And it's funny because none of the songs on the record have ever been like there have been no, we don't go into things thinking like, okay, let's make a song like this. It's more like, let's just write a song and see where it goes. Does it have the right energy? Whatever. Like Got It, for an example, the third single that came out pretty recently, that was like it never for us sounded on Eclipse, right? It just sounded like it had a lot more punk energy, maybe
I
because
was
the
gonna
song,
say
right?
you've got pop punk songs almost.
Right.
It's so funny hearing Eclipse playing that, or I want to say Anthem is. I mean, it feels like a
Right.
Celtic song almost. But it
Oh,
works.
for
It's you
sure.
guys with that influence and that energy going.
Right. So Anthem is funny because Anthem, it's so funny. I get the fact that it's called Celtic every time we talk about it in like Canada or the US or England or Scotland or Ireland. It's all because it's very similar to the Celtic music, but it has a lot of Swedish folk music in it. And that's like, it also comes from the area where we record everything. It's just a very folk music, heavily dense like region. And Eric knows a lot about that stuff. We've always had that ever since Monumentum. We've had some songs and bits that have that in them. Like "Downfall of Eden" is an old track that's very Swedish folk or Celtic, if you want. So we just didn't have it for the last record, really, because "Viva la Victoria" is essentially also like a Swedish folk melody tune thingy, and "Anthem" was just like a song that it was written for Wired, but it didn't really fit the record because Wired's such a rock and roll, right? That's our previous album,
Yeah,
such a rock and roll, like clear cut rock and roll record.
yeah. I would say it's more of an
And
album of Children of the Night type songs.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, right. And what's so funny about that is that Eric looks at music in a very different way than most people. I think he just looks at it as like a song is like a box of bananas,
I'm curious where this is going because I'm already liking the analogy.
right? Either you use it directly or it will rot and just, you can't do anything with it, right?
Yeah.
But I think we managed to, it was me and Philip, we were trying to persuade him to like, let's bring this song back because it's so good, right? It's so great. And we didn't really change a lot with it besides the fact that maybe the lyrics changed. I don't know that, but we made it. We did it over a weekend, I think, and it just like sounded awesome and massive. And that's exactly what this album needed as well. So it was just like, oh, it's on, and now it's, I think that's going to be awesome to play live. I think we're definitely going to play it this fall when we're, out on the road.
That was one thing that really stuck out is what a live record this is going to be.
Yeah,
the
right.
audience is going to be able to chant every single one of these songs with you guys. Not that, I mean, Eclipse has always had that. I mean, if there's one thing Eclipse has, it's great choruses, but
Right.
this one especially, I think, really reaches for that. Is like you can see the lighters going up, or now the cell
Right.
phones.
Yeah, no, for sure, Brandon, you're right. No, that's also like what we write for. We write for the stage as well. We really want to make songs thinking of them how we're going to play them live. We're not going to play every song live, but we're also at that point in the band's career where when we do a show, and if it's 90 minutes, you're going to have to utilize parts of the entire catalog, right? So, but we're very keen on playing these songs live and trying them out, and especially seeing the reaction of the audience.
Oh, for sure. Well, Vic, thank you.
Brandon. All right, where are you in Canada, by the way?
Windsor, which is right next to Detroit.
Windsor, awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, Windsor itself, small city of like 200,000, but right next door is, where the music mecca is, especially from back in the day. So living next to Detroit is very cool, especially when it comes to concerts.
That's awesome. All right, cool. Well, it's been a pleasure, Brandon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And pass the word on to the guys. Absolutely loving it down in Canada, and hopefully you guys can make it out to North America. I saw Eclipse at Prague Power about 5 years ago or so I'm hoping one day you guys will make it back.
Oh yeah, in Atlanta, Chicago.
No, in Atlanta.
Oh right, Atlanta. Okay, yeah, it was before my time, so I wasn't there. But yes, I remember they did.
Yes, it actually was in Chicago many years ago.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been awesome. Have a great one, and we'll talk in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I look forward to it.
All right, have a good one. Bye.